Hi, everyone. Welcome to week 2 of our social distancing podcast with the Oracle Sports team. I'm Oracle Sports editor Brian Hattab. That is Nolan Brown. Later
Howdy.
on, we thought that was going to be your sign. I stepped all
Oh,
over you.
okay.
Okay, I stepped over him. I'll step over him later in the podcast when we speak with USF softball ace pitcher, kind of redundant, USF softball ace, Georgina Corrick. We chat with her. This is a time of improvisation. So you'll see what we mean by improvising as we do a teleconference call with Georgina Corrick, where you can't see any of us. So again, it's a time of improvising for everyone, and we're just making the best of bad situations, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it is what it is, but we're finding new and creative ways to get that good content.
So, we talk about making best of bad situations here, and it's been kind of the topic we talked about it a little bit last week. It's been on our mind for a while now with regard to NCAA eligibility for spring and winter athletes who had their seasons cut short. And Georgina Corrick obviously was one of them, although she, only a junior, still had one of her seasons of eligibility cut short amid the pandemic. But of course, the seniors are the ones you really feel bad for. So the day after everything was canceled, the College World Series, March Madness, whatever, the NCAA Division I, I'm going to look like an idiot. I think it's the competition committee. No, that's NFL. But one of the NCAA's many committees came out and said they felt it would be appropriate to grant relief for eligibility for spring athletes that had their seasons cut short, and made no comment about winter athletes. Ultimately, the NCAA Division I Council was to vote on it this past Monday, and they ultimately decided to go with the recommendation. They granted an extra year of eligibility for spring athletes and did not grant it for winter athletes. And there you go. There's your resolution to that situation. I think obviously it's the appropriate thing for spring athletes, and them coming back, a senior this year coming back next year is not guaranteed the same scholarship that they had this year, if any. They're not really granted anything other than the opportunity to come back if they so choose and if their team wants them back. So it's pretty much just the ability to come back for another season. For winter sports, it's unfortunate, but pretty much in terms of basketball, regular season was done. You just had postseason play. For hockey, I think they were mostly done NCAA wise. I really couldn't tell you off the top of my head right now, but for the most part, that was the NCAA's logic, is the majority of the regular season was done. You definitely feel bad for that. I saw a report saying, though, in terms of basketball, most college coaches don't want the seniors that would have come back if they could back next year anyway, because the ones, and I don't know how true this is, it was just a report I saw yesterday, but the ones that are good enough to go pro are going to go pro. And the ones that would stay back are the ones that coaches probably wouldn't want back anyway and want them gone. So I don't know, Nolan, what your thoughts are. I think the NCAA did the best that they could. I don't like giving them credit because the NCAA is just a terrible organization most of the time, but I think it was the most pragmatic solution.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think when you think about logic in mind, it's a logical solution. I mean, when you think about the spring sports, like softball, baseball in general, most of the conferences haven't even hit conference play yet when the season was cut short. It wasn't even halfway done. So using that logic, it's like, well, we haven't even reached that halfway point yet. Let's just give them another season of eligibility. Let's kind of start over, basically. But like you were saying, with the winter sports, I mean, we're in the middle of basketball tournaments. I mean, it was March, basically. March Madness was right around the corner. So it was basically the last, yeah, it's a big deal, March Madness, but it was the tail end of the season. There was not much left. And to give them a whole nother year of eligibility, I think that's just giving too much in that sense. And like you said, with seniors, I'm sure some of them wanted to leave, or maybe the coaches wanted them to leave as well. And I guess now they don't feel bad about, sticking around for another season. They can go on and go pro or whatever their next venture is. But I think it's a good call. I think it's a call that sort of, I guess, appeals to everyone. And it's something that I guess most people were thinking of, like, this is the right way to do it. And the NCAA made the right call in this situation.
You're not going to have those same seasons. So inevitably, you're going to get a different bracket than you're going to get this year anyway. You're going to have different darlings. You're going to have teams that just don't qualify next year that would have qualified this year. I don't think that there was, even if you grant the relief, I don't think that you were going to get the same result. It wasn't going to play out fairly. The difference with baseball, softball, track, all these other spring sports, like you mentioned, we hadn't gotten into conference play in the American. I know the SEC and ACC were like a week into conference play. So that's a big difference than playing your entire conference slate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think going back to what you're saying about basketball is that you can't replicate that across another season. And I think that honestly goes with any sport. I mean, yeah, with softball, baseball, that you're kind of before conference play or in that sort of preseason, you're trying to figure things out and whatnot. But, what if you have a guy that was going off, maybe for a baseball team, I can't even think of an example right now, but just a guy that was, playing really well in that sort of preseason phase. And then you're expecting that sort of thing again. And it's like, well, that's not really going to happen, something like that. I think the name is escaping me right now, but that one player from Memphis, I think he hit, 7 RBI in one game, and he had a nice streak, a hot streak going, and that was going up into conference play. Ironically, that was also USF's first conference opponent, so that would have changed a little bit. But things
Maybe
like
you catch
that.
a break.
Yeah, but things like that, I mean, you can't replicate that. I mean, you could try, yeah, you could be at that level, but it's not going to be the exact same. I mean, everyone sort of has the season is an ebb and flow. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
And I'll be interested to see what the NCAA and the conferences want to do, and teams, individual teams want to do regarding individual and program records. We talked about this with Georgina Corrick, or will talk about this with Georgina Corrick, breaking the fourth wall there. But obviously, if you get basically an extra half a season to work on like career records, it kind of puts you at a little bit more of an advantage than the previous person who had the record. But I don't think anybody's really come out and say anything. Does the NCAA want to wipe the slate clean? Do we want to just be like, hey, this is just the reality? Do we want to put asterisks on it? I don't think there's much precedent for that. I mean, back in the day in Major League Baseball, they wanted to put an asterisk on Roger Maris when he beat Babe Ruth's single season home run record because Maris got to play more games. They didn't do that. They didn't put it on Barry Bonds. So I don't see them doing that. But there's a lot that still I think needs to be figured out in regards to how history is going to view this period of sports. And I think really there's a lot that still has to be figured out with regard to how we're going to proceed with fall sports, because now we're looking at maybe a little bit of jeopardy with the football season. We were talking before we started the recording here about a report that came out on Friday from Sports Business Journal that it wasn't a really comprehensive report, but a lot of people took it and ran with it because it was a sexy story, let's just be honest, and it got clicks. About how they might move the college football season up to an abbreviated version in July, August, and September in hopes that the virus subsides, which there's no scientific evidence to date that proves that that's going to happen. But assuming that happens, right now we have a lot of states that are on lockdown and might still be on lockdown until then. I think Virginia is set to be on lockdown until June 10th. So you're basically saying camp can't start until June 10th at the earliest for schools in Virginia, like Virginia Tech, and any other schools in Virginia. Name whatever school you want in Virginia, it doesn't matter. And I think Maryland probably is not going to be too far off from that. They didn't set a date, I don't think, but I'm sure they're thinking the same things. Toronto, I know that's a Canadian city, but Toronto's locked down, no public events until June 30th. So I don't see that happening. Stadium released an article that they did that's a survey of 116. Let me look it up here. It is 112 FBS athletic directors and what they think the likelihood we'll have a college football season is. And will there be, it's just, will there be college football in 2020? And 16% of the respondents said 10 out of 10, we will have a football season. 27% of the respondents said there's 7 out of 10 sure. And then 18% said they're 50-50. Nothing was lower than that. Nobody said we're not going to have college football. But a lot of them said, you know, talk to me in the end of May, and we'll see how I feel then. Quote, I'm optimistic we'll have a season, a Power 5 AD said, but ask me again in May what I think. A lot of Group of 5 athletic directors said that if we don't have a season, it could be a killer to programs. They'd have to cut programs entirely. Olympic sports, so baseball, softball, like we were talking about with Georgina Corrick, that's an Olympic sport that they might have a team. I'm not saying USF, I'm not saying any program in general, but there are certainly a lot of departments out there that are not that can't survive without a college football season. It probably couldn't survive with an abbreviated college football season. You think it's big money in college football, SEC, ACC, yeah. Well, it's not in the MAC. It's not in the Sun Belt. You know, it's not really in the American either.
Yeah, and I think abbreviated, or if you don't have it at all, no college football or abbreviated college football, fans will, I'm not going to say riot, but they're not going to be happy at all. And the thing is, yes, you bring in so much revenue with college football. I mean, you think about how many stadiums are filled up and how much you can sell a ticket for and how much you can, charge for concessions and things like that. That all goes into the revenue of the program. And if you don't have that, like you were saying, that could sink certain programs. I mean, thinking back to, let's talk about ECU, for example. I'm not saying their program is in danger of falling or anything like that. Greenville, North Carolina, that's not a town that's bustling. I mean, football is like the thing that is theirs. I mean, that's the thing that they go to when there's nothing else to do. I mean, there's really nothing else to do in Greenville, except for maybe that chicken festival that we crossed into. But ECU is, yes, their football program isn't maybe the best, but that stadium was filled up.
That stadium, yeah.
Yeah, and there were tailgaters and things like that. So think about what would happen to not only that program, but that town as a whole, the city of Greenville, if there wasn't any college football for that season. What would they do? What would happen to the revenue? What would happen to people visiting that town? And what would happen to just people? What would people do? I mean,
here's my biggest concern is, okay, let's play the season without fans, because that might be the most realistic thing, given the nature of, like I said, like Toronto's banned, no public events. Theoretically, you could play a game, closed doors, and play it under the guise of it's not a public event if we don't let the public in. But like you're talking about ticket sales, that's especially for a Group of 5 conference, the Power 6 conference, but for a program like ECU or anything non-Power 5. And, you know, that's probably even Pac-12, their TV deal's not great. Anything that doesn't have a great TV deal, their money is made at the door. And once you get in the door, and if you are having stadiums that are empty and you're not selling merch, you're not selling $15 beers, you're not selling tickets in the first place, it's, you know, it's almost like, you know, the AAC's TV deal, which goes into effect this year, is not really that, it pales in comparison to a Power 5 deal. So I think the takeaway from that article is Power 5 schools think they'll be fine. One Group of 5 athletic director, I think, even told Brett McMurphy that Power 5 will be fine. It's actually, I think, the last quote in this article. And it really kind of was powerful to me. Quote, most of the Power 5 schools wouldn't miss a beat, a Group of 5 AD said, but it would be devastating for the rest of us. So really, any kind of deviation from the norm is going to be really bad for the vast majority of FBS programs. You know, of the 130 programs in FBS, let's be honest, there's really 10 to 15 halves and a few in betweens, and a lot that they're living paycheck to paycheck like the rest of us.
Yeah, and to be fair, I don't think that Power 5 programs will be fine per se. I mean, yeah, you can have that confidence, or maybe it's bravado or whatever, but those programs are not going to be fine. I mean, think of like heavy.
They'll be affected, absolutely.
Oh yeah, but they're going to take a big hit. I mean, something like, think about Alabama or Clemson or LSU or even like Wisconsin or whatever, and just the fan bases of those teams. If they're not spending those tickets, if they're not going to, I mean, season tickets, you're going to have to refund season tickets if people have already bought them, and if you won't let them in the door. So they're going to take a big financial hit. And yeah, I mean, for most of those universities, college football is their big money sport. Yes, obviously, it brings in the money. And if you don't have that, if you don't have the doors opening up, and yeah, you can have TV deals and whatnot, but that can only bring in a certain amount of money. If you have ticket sales, if you have concession sales, that is almost the heart of what you're bringing in. And if you don't have that, you're going to take a big hit. And then they're going to, like you were saying, possibly cut other programs that are hanging on by strings. And so I don't think those programs will be fine per se.
I think if there's a solution, I think they should look at potentially playing it. If they have to push it back to the spring, I think they should play the college football season. If they can play it in the spring, play it in the spring. If it comes to that, college basketball is not going to like it, but you know what? It's one of those things where desperate times will call for desperate measures, and if we could save even one program by doing something like that, I don't think it's going to collapse. I think you look at things, and there are basketball schools and there are football schools, and there are a few that overlap. But the reality is a lot of schools don't seem to have that overlap, that you could kind of get away with it and be fine. And maybe the basketball program takes a little hit, or the football program takes a little hit, but they're at least surviving. Nobody wants to do it, but desperate times for desperate measures.
Joined now by a two-time American Athletic Conference Pitcher of the Year, set the USF softball tied the USF softball single game record for strikeouts in a game with 18 earlier this season against Wisconsin, had moved her way into fifth all-time in strikeouts in program history, was poised to move higher this season before things were cut off, as everything else in the sports world was cut off 2 to 3 weeks ago. Joined now by, of course, junior pitcher Georgina Corrick. George, thanks for joining us at this weird setup here, teleconferencing in, but, I mean, this is just the reality of our lives now. We can't be near each other.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
So I I guess that's kind of a good place to start is, how have you been adjusting to life taking classes outside of your norm? Because I know you're a biology major, and that kind of strikes me as something that doesn't seem like an easy thing to do online.
No, it's been a little bit different. I was definitely a little disappointed, not solely just for softball reasons, but also academically. I was having a really good semester. I really enjoyed my professors and, going to my classes and getting a lot of good hands-on learning. But we've moved all of I had a genetics lab online. I have natural vertebrate history, all these fun things. They've all moved online. And it's definitely a different way of learning, but I kind of like it because I get to set my own pace. I get to have a little bit more time to just kind of sit and relax. And then obviously I'm home with my parents, and that's been something that I've been really excited to have because obviously they've been huge fans of mine, and they come to all the games and they make the Tampa drive at least once a week, which is an easy couple of hours for them. But it's nice because I get to be home and I get to bug them now, more so than when they come out to Tampa. So it's been a little bit of a different transition, but it's not all bad per se. It's just different, and it's kind of, I'm sure everyone is having the same problem where a lot of our responsibilities now are with laptops and in front of screens. So it's been a little different. I have to kind of force myself to go outside more than I would have expected.
I know that one thing that's definitely facing a lot of athletes as a whole is trying to find time to basically work out and stay in shape on their own. And how are you kind of tackling that issue of just, I guess, individual workouts?
It's definitely been a little bit different just because the gym that I usually go to is closed now, as most things are. So more of my exercise has been a little bit more lax. I kind of feel like a grandma. My exercise for the day is taking my dogs out to the park or something and trying to maybe throw with my dad. Right now it's a little bit fresh, so I've been enjoying my time off. Been doing a little bit less strenuous exercise and more like go kayaking or do something that's outdoorsy and just more long-term exercise. Like I went for a nice jog around my neighborhood the other day. So overall, it's been less exercise focused towards kind of being a student athlete and more just enjoying the time that I have off. I know I will have to get back into the training soon, probably sooner rather than later. But for right now, I'm kind of just taking it as it is because it's too hectic of a moment right now to really be trying to complicate it with more things. So my exercise regimen has really been take my dogs to the park, jog my dog around the park, come back home, walk outside again.
Not a bad plan.
Yeah.
No, not awful. Definitely, I could imagine worse things that I could be doing.
You could be sitting on the couch and binge eating and just binge watching a tiger show. I haven't even watched it.
Oh
so
my
I don't know
gosh,
the name of it.
It's on my list. I haven't started it yet, but it does look like an absolute whirlwind.
I've been avoiding it. I don't know why.
Actively avoiding it. Good for you.
I just don't know why. I feel like I'm going to watch it eventually, but I've just been like, no, I'm good for now.
Yeah, it's never really been my thing. I'm more of a nature documentaries person.
At some point, we're all gonna have to just go outside our comfort zone to watch shows we normally wouldn't watch
because we've run out of all the other ones.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. With all these gyms closed, it's tough for really any athlete to stay in shape. I was trying to cut weight too. I've been going to the gym, and now my family as a whole, we all just bought a home elliptical, so we're all doing different things. It's kind of just a crazy time.
It really is.
You think back to that last game, the game you pitched against Penn State. Y'all won 1-0, and that ultimately proved to be the last game of the season for you guys, and ultimately the penultimate day of USF athletics for hopefully not that much longer. But getting to the ballpark that day, I don't know if they had made the announcement of the transition to online classes by the time you got there that day, but I'm sure you had heard the rumors. I'm sure you had heard everything we had heard, because it seemed like everyone we talked to had heard the same thing. So What was in the back of your mind that evening?
The evening of the game.
The evening of the Penn State game, which ultimately proved to be the last game.
I guess I really wasn't thinking about it as kind of like the idea that it was almost the end of our season, that we were cut off at the knees a little bit. I never really thought about that. It was kind of just another game, one that you go out for. So looking back, I'm glad that we played it like that. That no one played it as kind of it's coming to an end right now. We've got it. This is our last hoorah, I'm glad that we kind of played as a team, and we played assuming that there were going to be more games, kind of with the mentality that, we keep pushing, this isn't it. I know obviously I had a lot of professors and emails were flying about the possibility of maybe a lot of things moving online. I think the announcement kind of came as a surprise because it was a little bit earlier, I'm sure, than most people expected. But now kind of looking at the way that this has blown up so quickly and so without any warning, really, I'm almost glad that they did do it at the time that they did. As hard as a decision is for the student athletes, I realize now, looking on the global scale, just how important it was for us to get this social distancing starting as fast as we can, and I'm sure nothing would have kept my parents from coming into that stadium, regardless if they'd said that they were closing the stadium and we were playing without fans. I know that we just have so many people that feel so passionately about the sport that I'm sure it still would have brought them out and they would have stood outside the gates. So I'm very glad that the NCAA had a tough decision to make, but I think they made the right one.
I know definitely recently the NCAA said that they would be giving eligibility to everyone, basically. This season will kind of be like a blank mark, a fresh slate. I know that before that was decided, I know some of your teammates, especially some of the seniors, were just pouring out their hearts, on Twitter and basically saying that, my season's over and things like that. How have you and your other teammates, I don't know if you've had any sort of contact with them, how have they sort of, adjusted to that sort of whirlwind of, yes, you're going to be able to play, no, you're not, maybe you are, kind of back and forth?
I think it was important for all of us. I think when the first announcement came out, a lot of us were driven very strongly by our emotions and just knowing that something a rug had been pulled out from under us. But Coach Jess made it very clear, she was like, the only thing that really help is time. We have to give this time to develop. We have to see, she's like, people don't make decisions like this lightly, so they know the heavy consequences and the heavy reactions that would have come from that decision. So I think it's very difficult because we, as players, don't like to feel that we have no power in something, that we have no say. So for all of us to stand together and have a voice, I think it was really important, but also it was very essential that misinformation was stopped, that we only reacted in a way that promoted the best for our safety, for the safety of our parents, for the safety of the people around us, our fellow students, not just athletes, but everyone on campus and everyone in the state, really, that we had to keep in mind that while we'd lost something, the potential of loss elsewhere was even bigger. So I know we were really driven by emotions and everyone was very, very upset. I spoke out as well, just because no one likes to feel powerless. But in situations like this, that's everyone does. It's not only student athletes that feel that we're out of control in a situation like this, it's everyone. So I think we as a group have adjusted well over time and started falling into that role that, we don't really know what's going on, but we can do our best to try and help the situation.
Obviously, the Olympics being postponed another year will affect your guys' head coach, Ken Erickson, in some way or another. He'll either have to take another year off from USF or he'll have to come back. And I'm sure I'm not sure if he's made that decision. I don't know if you would even know that at this point. But my question for you really is with regards to Team Great Britain. Are you guys going to have the ability, do you know if it's like a requalification process or is it just everybody who's qualified is still qualified for 2021 and you guys are still kind of out of it?
I believe that we are still out of it. So unfortunately, I believe they're just postponing, unfortunately for us, fortunate for everyone else who already qualified, of course.
Yeah.
But they've already decided the teams that are getting the Olympic berth. And so it's just the Olympics themselves that have been postponed. There wouldn't be another opportunity for GB to qualify until 2028, I believe. And that's kind of the assumption that we're working under. Nothing's actually been officiated this summer, I believe, for GB yet. So I'm kind of just keeping my ears to the ground, trying to make sure that I know what's going on for more details like flight informations and stuff like that. But also kind of obviously I would like to play this summer. So it could be a situation where I get to maybe do something a little bit more academic than athletic this summer and maybe, I don't know, pick up an internship. I just want to stay busy, you know.
Just kind of follow up on that. Have you spoken to Ken, and how's he doing if you have?
I have, actually. He's doing well. He's enjoying his time off in quarantine. I know he's a very busy guy who's always running. So we talked yesterday, and he's been sending me pictures of he's doing gardening, and he's doing all these great construction jobs at his house. And it's really exciting to see him kind of in his natural element and getting to spend more time with his family, because I know we are his second family and his home away from home. But I'm really glad that he gets to spend the time with his daughters and his wife and everything. So I think he definitely deserves that time with them, and that he's making pretty good use of it.
I know we talked a little bit just briefly about Tiger King, and I know we've both been putting it off, but what have you been watching? What's your Netflix list, or I guess Amazon Prime, or whatever streaming service you're using?
Oh, goodness. Well, I'm home, and as I'm sure all of you know, my parents are very British. So I don't really I'm not an adult in this house. I'm still a child, so I don't get control of the TV. So I've been watching a lot of Jeopardy, a lot of British, like cop shows, murder mysteries. My mom's a huge Agatha Christie.
Oh my God.
Gosh, yeah. So all of that stuff. I'm actually really into a couple of shows now. But for me, I've actually I've taken up crochet, as fun as that is. And so I watch nature documentaries while I'm doing my crochet, because if I get distracted, then I mess it up.
You really are a grandma.
I am. I actually, you guys think I'm kidding now. I'm going to turn my video on so that you can see. This is my crochet project that I've been working on this entire interview. And then I was bored watching my mom's murder mystery last night, so I picked up my knitting needles and I got started on a scarf.
So we're actually on an audio call, so I had to look up what crochet actually is.
You don't even know what crochet is?
Knitting.
I did it.
No,
I've been crocheting.
Yeah, I'm really upset that it's in a video call. I had wanted to do a video call. We settled for an audio call, and now we don't get to see you crocheting.
Now you don't get to see my crochet project. I'm very proud of it, too. I only started 3 days ago. And I'm already
How good are you so far? So give us a little visual description. Paint the picture with words.
Okay, so I'm trying to make the beginning of a top. So I've got this funky thing that kind of looks like a triangle, or a a spaceship. And I don't know. I don't really know that many stitches, so it's pretty plain and boring. But I'm really excited because I'm supposed to be learning through my YouTube videos how to make a little scallop pattern. So I'm really excited about that. The knitting scarf is pretty ugly. I just do that because I get bored, and then if I'm bored, I pick at my fingers, so I don't like doing that. So it gives me something to do with my time. But I really am such a grandma. I've got a hot cup of tea next to me. I've got 2 dogs asleep on my couch next to me. It's really you think that being a student athlete is a glamorous lifestyle. It's really not. It's just me sitting on the couch knitting.
Hey, you've got retirement figured out for down the road. So
I've retired at the ripe age of 21. And it's
you're going to have to send us your finished product, a picture of your finished product.
I'll be putting it on my Twitter very soon because I'm ridiculously proud of it.
Awesome.
It sounds like you've come out of this already with a life skill, and I'm just trying to figure out how to piece together podcasts.
But if you watch Tiger King, you'll know how to get away with murder. So that's a life skill.
Hey, spoiler alert, right?
I know.
That's what it's about. It's about murder.
I can't get away with it. I haven't even seen the show, and I already basically know what happens because of Twitter, because they're the worst.
Yeah, and I think that's what's kept me away. Like, I'm going to go into the show knowing what's basically happened, so why watch it?
Yeah, exactly.
But
you know?
There'll come a time where it doesn't matter.
That was me with Game of Thrones. I never watched Game of Thrones, but I knew what happened from Twitter. I'm not interested in sitting there and watching it now. You know?
You scroll through your Twitter feed, and then you see the whole episode, and you're like, well, I didn't have to watch it.
I know. I can get back to my knitting. I've got more important things to do.
I know. To kind of get back to softball here for a second here. I mean,
sorry.
Not that crochet isn't actually really exciting, honestly. It's something I learned a new word today, too. To get back to softball, I know you don't really care, or not that you don't care about it, but you don't really think about records. Because I know we'll come down after a game and say, hey, you just set another record, another personal record, and you're like, I'm just out here pitching, or whatever your standard line is. So I know you don't really think about it that much, but obviously, like, it was close to halfway through the season, so you come back, now you still got 2 years of eligibility here. Is there anything in the back of your mind that might think that maybe if you set some program records now and, like, just get over that mark, does it kind of get in the back of your mind that now all of a sudden things might be screwy in the record books, or does that just not matter to you? Is winning more important?
I've thought about it a little bit. I know it's in all seriousness of, like, fairness. I know it's difficult to know that maybe someone who set a record who had an additional 25, 30 games, it's a little unfair. But also just kind of knowing that, like, no one goes out to do it on purpose. You know, no one was like, oh, I'm going to do this great Corona year so that I get extra, play time. No one's really thinking about that. So it's hard because, like, I also do feel like if I was somebody who had a record, like, beat by somebody who'd had a Corona year, that it would be a little bit unfair. But also I don't think I could get mad at the player themselves more than just the unfairness of the situation. So I obviously, like, I have thought about that and take that into consideration, but also kind of knowing that they had a much more complex situation likely than I'd had to go through in order to kind of get that great achievement there. So it's not something that I think about too much, but I would definitely, if, like, there were a record broken or something, you kind of do have to tip your cap that, they had to go through something like this in order to even get that opportunity.
Well, the best way of avoiding controversy, I use with air quotes, is just obliterate the record. Make it where there's no doubt.
Yeah, I know. I believe it was Sarah Nevins to set a pretty impressive strikeout record, but she's a really nice lady, and I've spoken to her before. So I'm pretty sure if I beat a record, I think that's just regardless of whether I'd had a couple additional games or not, that would be an absolutely incredible achievement that just can't be attributed to a couple extra games, No,
with how far advanced she is in that record, you'd have earned it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of where you have to tip your cap, but also know that you have respect for anyone who breaks records like that. Like, those achievements aren't done in a single year. They're done over an entire career. So you can't just look at those couple extra games and go, that's the reason,
All right. Well, Georgina, I appreciate you taking a few minutes of your time to speak with us on this adventure here. I hope you finish your classes strong, stay well. Hopefully everyone that you care about stays well. Hopefully all your teammates are keeping well. Hopefully, I don't know if you're keeping in contact with Jess Moore and everything, but I hope she's well. I hope everyone's well. And hopefully we see you out there next spring.
Yeah, you too, guys. Stay safe.
All right. So that's our podcast for the week. I'm disappointed we didn't get to see Georgina Corrick's crochet, but when she said crochet, I thought she was talking about croquet, which is a sport that you play. You got these big balls on the ground, and you kind of, like, guide them with a mallet and you put them through like these arches.
Yeah, that's what my mind jumped to first. I was like, why are you playing croquet? And I was like, oh, crochet. Okay.
Which, I mean, I think croquet is kind of, that's a pretty much British kind of thing, right?
I don't know.
It's
Maybe.
I don't know, but my mind jumped to that, obviously. But regardless, no, she's knitting, or yeah, I guess that's lack of a better term. But yeah, we all gotta learn new things while we're doing this. So stay well, everyone. Stay inside. Just help keep flattening the curve. Hopefully we'll have football this year, and hopefully we'll have spring sports next year. Hopefully everything gets back to normal sooner rather than later, and we'll talk to you next week. Haven't determined who we're trying to book yet. I think we should, Nolan, you and I, we should probably figure that out sooner than later, but we'll try to bring you some quality content either way, even if it's through the magic of cellular telephones.